Continue. Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Jane Hopkins. I'm with CEDA, and we're pleased that you are here today to talk and learn about partnering for economic mobility in Harvey. This meeting is produced and presented by CEDA to introduce you or reintroduce you to our Engage Harvey project. This is a planning project envisioned and funded by the Robin Hood Foundation. All attendees this morning are in listen-only mode, but we invite you to share your questions, your comments at any time during this presentation by typing into the Q&A window. You should find that icon at the top right of your screen. I wanted to let you know who is here with us presenting this morning. Again, my name is Jane Hopkins, and I am CEDA's Information and Planning Analyst, and I'm the project coordinator for our Engage Harvey project. A little bit of background on me. I have been working with CEDA for about 8 years after coming from another community action agency in Northwest Indiana. So I have been working in anti-poverty work across the region on both sides of the state line for several years. I am a Southeast Sider, so I know the South suburbs. I've lived in the South suburbs. I've owned business in Harvey. I'm more than committed and involved in this work, and I hope that you will be as excited about this project as we are. Also joining us today is Michelle Anderson, and I'll let Michelle introduce herself.
Hi, my name is Michelle Anderson. I grew up in Harvey, and my parents still live in the same house I grew up in. I attended Bryant, Brooks, and Thornton. My children have also attended the same schools. I was a very involved parent at the schools from Riley to Thornton. I learned about the opportunity to work with CEDA for the Engage Harvey project from Governor State University, where I earned my MBA. I took this internship to be involved in this exciting and innovative project in the city that raised me, and I look forward to seeing what the results are going to be.
Thank you, Michelle. Appreciate hearing from you this morning. Now I'd like to learn a little bit more about who else is in the room. So I have a quick poll for you. It'll only take a couple of seconds, but if you have your smartphone handy, you can point your camera to the screen. It'll take you right to the link, or you may find the link in the Q&A window. That should take you to the link, and we'll take a couple of minutes for everybody to navigate to that. It's just a simple matter of who is what sector you're from. We'll be getting a little bit more information about your organizations in another poll a little later in the presentation. While that's happening, I just wanted to acknowledge a couple of our other team members who aren't presenting today. Sharitha Gaston is our boots on the ground person who's been highly engaged in every aspect of our work to date. She isn't able to present with us today. Shanta McGee, CEDA's regional manager in the South region, is with us on the call, handling our Q&A for us. Shanta, do you want to say hi?
Absolutely. Good morning, everyone. Again, Shanta McGee. I'm excited you guys could take a brief moment today to learn about this project. I think you're going to love the information that Jane and Michelle is going to present. So thank you again.
Thanks, Shanta. I also want to acknowledge Renata Williams, who is oversees the whole project. She's CEDA's Chief Program Officer, and unfortunately, she's not able to be with us today, but we thank her for all of her efforts and support in this. So I'm wondering, do we have any results from our poll? We'll try to navigate to that. And you'll have to adjust your screen a little bit for us, Michelle, I think, so we can see the chart. Would you like to tell us what we have, what results we have? Michelle, I think you might be muted.
Sorry about that, Jane. We have 3 private nonprofit people here and 2 from public agency.
All right, very good. We have, I hope, more people planning to join us today, but we certainly appreciate anyone that can be here. So what are we trying to accomplish? Let me navigate back. I just wanted to give an overview here of what our meeting is to do today. We want to give an overview of our Engage Harvey project, including background and our process and activities to date. Very importantly, we want to share data, a lot of national data and deep data about mobility issues in Harvey, and our relevant data that we've collected in our work to date. And then finally, we'll talk about the next steps and how you may help pick up the baton with us and move this project forward to success. I'll start with a little bit of background about Engage Harvey. Engage Harvey is a project of the Mobility Labs, which is a pioneering 4-year initiative developed and run by Robin Hood Foundation, and they're also being partnered with some other prominent national foundations, Tipping Point Community Foundation, the Harry and Jeanette Weinberg Foundation, and Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. All of these entities are highly committed to have prioritized moving people sustainably out of poverty. And this process is part of that effort in a nationwide in 9 communities. They're defining poverty as more than just economic challenge, but also the lack of agency, that is the lack of having power over the trajectory of your life, and the lack of belonging, the othering that poverty causes. We are looking at all of those elements as we examine this. Like CEDA, Robin Hood and this coalition are rooted in the belief that those who best know what the solutions are the people that live the problem. We're highly committed to going to the low-income residents for the knowledge and leadership to design and lead this project. We are also all highly committed to working with the lens of racial equity to be applied throughout the entire process. So the Mobility Labs is in a 4-year project, and the first year is the planning phase, and that's what Engage Harvey is committed to. It'll be followed with a 3-year implementation phase where these foundations will fund the activity that the community has designed for itself. And then there'll be an evaluation of that so that successful projects can be replicated. So CEDA was the awardee for suburban Cook County. This is the only project in the Mobility Labs cohort that is looking at the suburban experience. So it's an important role that we are playing here. CEDA is the community action agency for suburban Cook County, serving over 150,000 households a year with many programs that you're probably familiar with. And our project has identified initially, as we started, 4 key partners that we wanted to work with locally because of their involvement and their mission to serve this same target population. And so we have Illinois Action for Children, the Housing Authority of Cook County, Restoration Ministries, and Thornton Township as our core partners as we started this. So why Harvey? They put the proposal out for the mobility labs to look anywhere in suburban Cook County. It was CEDA that chose Harvey because of its challenges and because of its significant size. We decided that this was an area that we really could have some potential impact. Another one of the partners in this Mobility Labs project across the country is an organization called Opportunity Insights. They're a research body based at Harvard University that have done some groundbreaking work with big data that have defined the condition of economic mobility in America and looked at it at very pinpoint level with some big information. So they were able to come and share with us, do a special project looking at Harvey specifically and share that data with us. It was it's important and unique data, so I wanted to share that today with you quickly. We're going to look first at Harvey in context, that low-income children in Harvey grow up to make less than other low-income children, that disparities extend beyond earnings to other social factors, and that patterns of racial segregation, of employment, of incarceration, and teen birth shed light of the patterns of mobility. So if you've never looked at a website called Opportunity Atlas, I strongly recommend you check it out, especially if you're interested in data and the kind of information that it can give you. It's a very powerful mapping tool that allows you to sort and by various characteristics and to drill down even to the census tract level. And so we're looking at some maps from that instrument right now. You'll see that the blue colors are the areas with the highest mobility. Now, what is mobility? That's where children who grew up in a family where the income was at a specific level, what their earnings were at age 35. So the Opportunity Insights has gotten access to this data through a relationship with IRS, through census, and many other sources, so they are able to look at a lot of data that never was available before. So this screen tells us that children raised in Harvey by a family earning about $27,000, which is the lower quintile of economic earnings, are making far less than the national average for that same income level child by the time they reach age 35. And we can see how, and it shouldn't be a surprise to those of us who study and work in Cook County, that these outcome patterns align with the racial segregation that exists in our areas. And here we can see how Harvey's racial makeup is distributed in our city. So what this map shows is the color reference to the national average, and that adult outcomes, the age 35 earnings for children who grew up in low-income Harvey families is way at the far negative end of the scale compared nationally to children who grew up in low-income families, again, in other parts of the country. But we need to recognize that disparities of the outcomes for children of different income levels extends beyond just what their earnings are as they're adults. Here we see compared just for Harvey children, those from low-income families on the left and higher income families on the right, those in the top quintile, again, estimated at income about 94,000. So you've got kids on the left from households making 27,000 a year, kids on the right from households making $94,000 a year. We see that their life results are going to be significantly different based on actual statistics of what's happened in the past. All right, note here that this graduation rate, college graduation rate we're seeing is not a Harvey data that wasn't available to the researchers, but it's a county level. We know that our Harvey graduation rates are significantly lower for college degrees. But let's look also at just low income families and compare by location. We'll see that these are kids who came out of low-income families, and the results in Harvey versus Cook County versus the national average. Harvey is struggling significantly against those other geographies. So it shows us that place matters, not just what dollar amount you had coming in as you were growing up, but the community that you were growing up in also. Because if we compare that to, those were low income kids, and these are high income kids from those three in geographies and what their adult results were. So we see, again, even for our higher income families from Harvey, we're lagging significantly behind the county average or the national average. We're seeing higher incarceration rates and much higher teen birth rates as well. The distribution of the geography, of the racial makeup of Harvey, again, should be noted because race makes a big impact on the adult earnings. We'll see here that African Americans in Harvey have earnings well below Hispanic or white and well below the national average. The data shows us that low-income women are more likely to be employed than low-income men. Again, this is Harvey specific, and these are by census tracts for the results. However, both groups have low individual wages in adulthood, so both men and women in Harvey are earning have incomes below the regional and national levels. Part of that may be attributed to the fact that most common jobs in Harvey are not in careers that are most likely to increase mobility. We see the highest numbers here on the left are in sales and administration, building and grounds maintenance, food preparation, what might normally be considered dead-end jobs. So we have some challenges in that area. Another factor besides income we talked about was incarceration, and these are some pretty shocking, to me they were pretty shocking and telling statistics. We're looking again in the color coding against the national average for incarceration at adulthood from kids in low-income families, and the teen birth rate in adulthood for girls who grew up in low-income families. And we see that all Harvey zip codes or census tracts have very distressing numbers in those two arenas. Let us next look at housing and neighborhood landscape, because it's not, people don't grow up in a vacuum. We grow up in communities. So let's look at some of the community issues. We see that Harvey is well behind in home ownership. And of course, home ownership is one of the primary pathways to wealth building in America. crime. High poverty communities are often correlated to high crime communities, and Harvey is no exception. We have some data around that, though it's hard to find. And we have neighborhood schools because the educational outcomes of the students is going to weigh heavily on their economic mobility. So looking at those three areas, first, we see that the share of renters among the population is rising faster in Harvey than elsewhere. There are fewer homeowners and getting to be fewer and more renters, and it's trending towards renters. All the nation has been trending towards renters since the housing crisis, but Harvey at a faster rate. And evictions, although they are dropped significantly as the housing crisis kind of subsided, and we have yet to see how the COVID crisis will impact that, but Harvey is running a higher eviction rate than suburban Cook County or Chicago. And the share of home ownership is declining faster in Harvey than it is in the rest of the nation. And if we look at schools, we mentioned that the educational outcomes, the achievement of the students is going to impact their future earnings. I think that's something we see in our work all the time. So there's some statistics from the Illinois State Board of Education School Report Card from 2017 that compare graduation rates in blue and ready for college measure in red for all the high school districts in South Suburban Cook County. And we see the Thornton Township District, which has the high school that serves Harvey, has the lowest at 13% only of their students considered ready for college by that measure. And if we compare that across the county, again, Thornton Township is at the far right. That blue line across the middle of the map is the county average. These bars are, I'm sure it's hard for you to see which high school district is which, but the color coding is by geography. So we see that all of the high school districts in the northern part of the county are falling above the average, and almost all of the districts in the southern part of the county are falling below, and some well below that average. So we again can see the impact of disparity and how place does matter in that result as well. Here we have information about the violent crime rate in Harvey. Now, getting crime data is kind of challenging because every municipality, every police department kind of gathers it themselves and reports it, and it's not always consistent. But this is comparing Harvey violent crime rate incidences per population of 100,000 people against the state average. So we see that the crime is high, and property crime similarly compared to the state average, although it appears to have been falling towards the last portion of this reporting. We still see that Harvey crime is well above the state national average based on those statistics. I don't know if there's any questions that have come in to the Q&A.
No, there's no any questions at this time. I asked if there was any questions.
All right, thank you, Shanta. And we just want to finish up this section on the Opportunity Insights data and just acknowledge that there are two approaches to dealing with the problem of mobility and place. All right, so there's two ways to look at this. One is to move people from a low opportunity place to a high opportunity place. And the second one is to change the characteristics in the place that might be impeding upward mobility. Okay, so both strategies are valid. The Housing Authority of Cook County has been doing some very intentional work on this first strategy by counseling and supporting housing choice voucher holders to relocate them into high opportunity communities. Now others, including other organizations, including CEDA and this project, are focusing more on that second strategy of changing the characteristics of the community that are impeding upward mobility. What are those characteristics? How can we know what they are? The data from Opportunity Insights, again, this mega data from across the country, has found these 4 variables that have the strongest correlation related to upward mobility. This doesn't mean that they're causes or that they are results of mobility, but they do correlate. So if the community has greater social capital being that that network of relationships among people who live and work in the particular society that enables that society to function effectively. So if a community has greater social capital, has better quality schools, if it has a lower poverty rate, if it has more stable family structure, they see in those communities greater upward mobility. Not to say that one is a cause or one is an effect. So how does Harvey stack up in those different variables? Well, look here at comparing Harvey to suburban Cook County in the middle of each stack and to the national average at the first bar in each stack. Some of these are kind of hard to measure. They're using to measure social capital, their interrelatedness of people, and they used the Census 2010 response rate. So it kind of as a measurable metric of how the community or how residents are engaged in their civic responsibilities. So we see that Harvey was very low in this regard at only 52% response rate compared to 73% for the county as a whole for our last census. For school, the quality of schools, we're looking at the proficiency of the 8th grade students for math, and we see real deficiencies in Harvey compared to the national average in the county. Poverty rate, of course, you know, Harvey has a very high poverty rate here measured in 2017 at 35%. And to kind of define family stability, we're looking at single parent rate share of households, and Harvey at an alarming 64% of households being single parents based on the 2017 data. So I don't know if there are any other questions. At this time, I am going to hand it back over to Michelle as I try to navigate her.
So Jane, there's
yes.
there's no questions at this time. So I just wanted to make sure people know that if they have any questions, concerns, anything about the slides that you want to send to me privately, you can do that. I can answer. I can ask Jane to stop and clarify more. So if you don't want to respond to the entire group, you can send a private message to me, and I can ask Jane to provide you with more details if necessary.
Thank you for that, Shanta. Michelle.
Thank you, Jane. In November 2019, the recruiting process. We sent out blank or direct mailing cards, passed out flyers, used social media, and pulled from our existing clients and CEDA. We took to the ground and recruited help from our community partners, went to school, talked with residents and local food pantries, and talked with several residents at several community events. From our recruiting efforts, we sat down and talked with over 200 residents. We set small tables for 8 to 10 people and had open, unfiltered conversations. We also had larger assemblies of 12 to 20 stakeholders, and we conducted one-on-one interviews with additional stakeholders. During our focus groups, stakeholder meetings, and one-on-one interviews, we asked open-ended questions to help guide our conversations. We asked, what gives you the most hope about your future? What types of problems have you had trying to get ahead? Thinking about experiences, when were you able to move up the economic ladder and how did you do it? What were the roadblocks, setbacks experienced, and what were the supports or lucky breaks you experienced? Then after having these discussions and having some very emotional conversations, we asked residents to write down the area they thought was the most important for us to focus on. Before I share those results with you, it's time for another poll. If you could please take out your smartphones once again and point to the screen or respond in the Q&A box, we would like to know what expertise do we have in the room today. So you could just take a few moments to answer that question and I'll share those results. While you're entering in your results, I will share about the conversations that we had with the residents. They were insightful, emotional, and we learned a lot about the residents of Harvey. We had some tears, some laughs, and heard some great stories. There's a sense of pride from the people who have lived here over time. The brightness in their eyes from sharing memories of what they call the glory days often came to sadness when they think about today's conditions. Many enjoy talking about the days when they can have a cup of coffee from Jean's Bakery or go to the pool or movie theater to relax. There was a stronger sense of community and they long for that again, and they're craving positive change. Now give me just a few moments and I'll see if I can get those results.
Results are still coming in.
Okay. And hopefully my screen shared this time.
All right, I think I will try to do that.
It looks like most people here work at the social and human services level, and then health and mental health. And we really have people represented from all across the board, it looks like.
This, excellent, excellent. Let's move on with our presentation.
Yeah.
Thank you everybody for chiming in and letting us know who you are.
All right, so when we asked about the positives, both the residents and stakeholders agreed that the top hope was having a newly elected administration in office. They both agreed having programs in place to help residents, including this Engage Harvey program, and about the potential Harvey has for development. Harvey is located close to all major interstates and the tollway, has the Pace bus terminal, Metro train, and the railroads. It really is a transportation hub. Other institutions like the library, becoming more involved in the community, schools, having good people here, being resilient, and having faith are other positives. Some of the negatives. Several areas of safety, crime, and violence were concerns for both residents and stakeholders. Lack of transportation, financial deprivation, poor credit, limited financial skills, poor education, lack of education resources, and no job training were also negatives. On a side note, although there is a lot of public transportation within the city, many jobs are either not located on routes or have hours outside of the limited bus schedules. Abandoned houses, blights, no local jobs, no lighting, no youth programs, and being able to pay for basic necessities are additional problems the residents identified. Some of the stumbling blocks included for both residents and stakeholders, financial fragility, including poor credit, poor money management, and debt. Also, mental health issues and drug and alcohol addiction were listed as problems. The residents also cited having criminal backgrounds, health issues, growing families, death or loss of a partner, having affordable and reliable childcare, as many do not work traditional hours, and job loss as additional areas of setback. Some of the mobility boosters, well, both agreed that education, strong support systems in both family and community, and hard work help people get ahead. Mentorship, good values instilled at childhood, and creating opportunities through entrepreneurship were additional areas identified by residents. And although we never asked this next question in our focus groups, as conversations flowed freely and people would share their ideals, we were able to capture them in data. Residents often mentioned the need to have the youth involved in activities, having some place for them to go after school, and having them be able to get jobs within their community as a desire. They also wanted to see the city look better, have more community involvement, have local jobs, and learn financial literacy. The stakeholders and residents both agreed on job training and bringing jobs into the community. The stakeholders identified having living wages, intentional change, and safety as additional desired changes. While having many conversations and having so many ideals shared, we collected a lot of data. We tallied up these results, and the top areas are highlighted here. All of our groups happened pre-COVID, and we will look further to see if these are still relevant. These areas of focus lie heavily with local jobs, education, job training, financial literacy, activities for children, having access to information, improving community, having affordable housing, and mentorship. The addition of mental health and improved transportation were mentioned by the stakeholders. We know that this grant is a starting point, and it's going to take a community-wide effort to see real results. We have found several existing areas of opportunity. Residents mentioned previously that they are having a hard time finding resources, so we're gathering those resources for them. To address local jobs, Amazon is coming on the border of Harvey and Markham on 159th and Dixie. They will offer both skilled and unskilled labor, livable wages, and benefits. For education, with the way things are changing, both adults active in youth development and restoration ministries have assistance with remote learning. Upward Bound helps prepare high school students for college. Many are first-generation students. 1 Million Degrees supports community college students towards success. CEDA has some scholarship programs, and Illinois Action for Children and the public schools offer early child development programs. Restoration Ministries has both a boxing club and art programs for youth. CEDA is forming a grassroots program focused on leadership development and community engagement. RTS Services provides community-based individual, family, and group counseling with no waiting list. And Cook County is currently working on a project that will replace city streetlights. We hope to build this list significantly. We want to make sure the residents are aware of what areas are already addressing their concerns so they make the most informed decisions for this program. I'll now turn it back over to Jane to discuss the next steps and how you can be involved.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Excellent summary. Shanta, you have something for us?
I do have two questions for you. So the first question is, will there or has there been an annual accountability impact grid for the success of this program for over the next 4-year range?
That is something that I can't answer at this point. We do anticipate the support of our Mobility Labs partners for identifying continuing resources. That's something that they have been committed to and are very hopeful to gather the evaluation data so that, you know, a strong case can be made for continued funding and expanded funding.
Okay, and then we have a couple other questions. So what is Engage Harvey looking for, and basically for the participants here, is it to end poverty? Will these foundations set programs for the communities, or are they willing to invest in other community companies that could help the community?
I believe that what we're looking to accomplish is not to end poverty. That's way too ambitious for the amount of funding that we're going to get for a 3-year project. So we don't want to misrepresent that. However, we want to design something that has a change element to it, that will change, if not either the community, if we're targeting a change in the community itself, or a change in the families that are enrolled in the initiative, if it's a direct service or participatory type of initiative. Our palette right now, our canvas is blank. We are trying intentionally to keep our canvas blank because we are so committed to the residents telling us what to do and not us designing programs based on our expertise. If they've, you know, come up with a program model that is outside of our expertise, we'll have to go find that expertise elsewhere and build it. So I just wanted to kind of reinforce that it is very much resident driven. We're not sure what it will look like. I believe there was a second element to that question, Shanta.
It was. And so you answered the first one asking what Engage Harvey was and how we're trying to end poverty. The other two questions were, will the foundation set programs for the community, or will the community, or are they willing to invest in other companies that will help the community? So are we willing to, or that foundation willing to invest in other agencies or companies to help improve the community?
Well, I think that they're very willing. We found the foundation very willing to be flexible and responsive to what the local needs and local realities are. This planning initiative is strictly that. CEDA was awarded the planning grant only. We are not awarded the implementation grant, although I know that the funders look to us strongly to be the experts on it. But in terms of who will deliver the work, that is yet to be determined. So hopefully that was the question. If they have any follow-up to clarify, I'd be happy to.
Not at this time, but I'm chatting with the person to make sure we clearly answer their question.
Yes.
You guys can move forward.
Oh, right. Thank you so much. I appreciate it and appreciate your interest. And we're trying to be as transparent and about what we need and what we can offer each other in this. So what are our next steps? Of course, the whole world has changed very much since this report was created, because that's all pre-COVID work. This was work that we did with the community and our focus groups and stuff starting in December, January, February. We were all ready to launch into our next steps of bringing our residents together to kind of set our priorities and make those choices of what we wanted to do. We were going to do that in community meetings starting at the end of March. Well, that could never happen. So it's a reset time now, and we need your help with that. We're very blessed and very fortunate to have the flexibility from our funder. They've extended the timeline for this planning phase until the end of the year. They've also expanded the scope of initiatives that they're looking to be willing to fund, opening their vision beyond the mobility from poverty, the initial target, but acknowledging that in the change world, communities might now actually need something different, something specific that would respond to crises and conditions caused by COVID-19. Also, the communities might be now refocusing on priorities that are aligned with the racial equity movement. So our funders have expressed their willingness to be more flexible and open-minded about what the community needs. We talked about having to scrap our community meetings. So now we need to do virtual convenings of our residents for the planning work and prioritizing. So that's going to mean a lot more hand holding, a lot more tracking people down. It's going to mean only being able to convene smaller groups. So that means we'll need more frequent meetings. So it'll be quite a bit of heavy lifting on this. And that's where we could use some other community partners that are invested in this mission to help us with that. If you are interested in that, here's what you can do. Next Tuesday, this is our scheduled bi-weekly meeting of our core partners. This will be after we've kicked back and relaxed for a 3-day holiday weekend. On Tuesday afternoon at 3:30, we'll be convening that next partner meeting, and we're going to be doing it through Teams meetings for the first time, so we'll be able to kind of see and interact with each other a little bit more. So we really hope that there'll be other organizations and professionals within the CEDA area that would help us and join in this conversation that we're having on how to move this work forward and hear from the community what our priorities are. If you're interested, send me an email to jhopkins@cedaorg.net and I'll shoot you an invite to that meeting and we can check it out together. That brings us to the end of our presentation. If there are any other questions or comments, I invite you to put them in the Q&A box. Also, if, as Michelle was soliciting information about the other resources, because we want to be sure that as we design this project that we're not duplicating good work that's already going on there. So if we don't know about it, we're on that risk. So if you know of projects or running programs, you can put that information into the Q&A box now, or you may send an email to any of us that you see on this screen. You've met myself, Michelle, and you didn't get a chance to chat with Sharitha, but we would all collaborate and can get that information to one another.
Shane, this is Jonathan. One more question. Will the slides be made available? Just their group, they want to make sure that they can have access to it.
Yes, we can send out the slide deck. Absolutely. If you.
Yep, and they were also asking will it be made available on our website. I don't know if they're going to add it to the website, but I think you can definitely make it available to them.
I will work on that also. I'll work on that also. I did want to let everybody know that this has been recorded. I should have let you know when we were gathered, but you were all anonymous anyway. But I will be sending out a link to the recording, and I'll send out a link to the slide decks because it's a very big file. And we'll be sending those out by early next week.
So I wanted just to clarify on the question that we had earlier. She said we answered part of the question. The other question she had is, will these foundations work with minority-owned businesses that are working towards the same goals as this program or project?
Oh, I see. Okay. And I can't answer that because I don't know how each of these different foundations views grants to for-profits. Oftentimes, foundations have their own guidelines around where their funding can go. My experience has been they generally fund not-for-profits or educational institutions or hospitals, nonprofits, but those entities can contract with for-profit to get the work done. But that's just a general background. I don't know the specifics for these various foundations that we mentioned.
No, I think think you answered it, Jane. And if the organizations are interested in partnering with us, I think it's an opportunity for them to join us at the meetings on Tuesday to really learn about how it's possible for them to collaborate with us as well, since they seem to have similar goals as ours.
Very good. Absolutely. Right. So if Shanta and you're not seeing any other questions, Michelle, if you have anything else to add?
I don't. I want to thank everybody for attending today.
I'm sorry, we have one more question. They asked, how can the Harvey Police Department help with this project?
Well, if they want to come to the meeting, we can explore that, because at this point, I haven't thought about that. I'd love to have a chat about that, either via email or coming to the meeting. I'd like to explore that. Thank you.
Give me one more sec, Jen. I want to make sure I've answered everyone's questions.
Absolutely.
So give me one more minute and we'll check. They're doing private and public, so mostly private. So give me one more second.
Okay.
To make that everyone's questions have been answered. It appears that we've answered everyone's questions, Jane. Thank you so much for your patience with that.
Oh, thank you so much for your navigating that mailbox for us. I appreciate your work, Shanta. It's very valuable.
No worries, no worries. I'm hoping that some of these questions we have, a lot of them we've already talked about, but like some people are anonymous, so I can't tell you who asked the question.
Okay.
But I would love for everyone to really consider joining us on Tuesday to be part of the project, and really circling back with Jane and Michelle and Sharitha so that we really can work together to have an amazing impact in the city of Harvey.
Thanks. Yes. You can say it so much better than I. Really important. Very good. I thank you again for joining us today. You have our emails, you have our phone numbers here, to make a note of those also. Those are all cell numbers because we're mostly remote. And you can reach out to us. Please feel free to do so at any time. We thank you for your interest. We thank you for your commitment to this work and these communities. And we hope you have a great holiday weekend. Relax, enjoy, refresh. Thank you for being here.